the meeting to order. We'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum present and we have an agenda that's been set to the committee in advance of the meeting. First item of business would be to review and approve the minutes of the previous meeting of December 4th, 2024.
Yeah, I gave you guys.
All right, and you gave us a hard copy.
Well, Paul suggested some changes and I incorporated most of them so you can read it.
Okay.
In the bottom line of what you added, you actually doubled up what I had already said, so.
Oh, did
it's
I?
Not exactly the same, but it's close.
So that would be the paragraph starting with one solution.
Yeah.
You didn't put in, and I'll just ask.
I didn't put in the thing that you suggested about that the department should adjust their planning, but I already said that in the sentence before.
All right. I'm not seeing that.
I said department heads may also have to make planning adjustments when ordering equipment,
Okay.
which is not exactly the same words that you use. Basically, says the same thing. I could change the other thing.
Okay, I think that as long as it conveys the meaning, I think the important part was that we were going to continue
Yeah.
the process of planning as we have always done.
In
And
conclusion, the committee decided to leave the planning purpose as is. The asset refreshment acquisition process will continue to be planned for the next year in which equipment is needed.
right, but we also want to communicate department heads may have to change their process because of the long lead
I know
times.
department heads may also have to make planning adjustments when ordering equipment.
Okay, all right. So is there a motion to accept the minutes as amended, which would be as handed out tonight?
I'll make a
Oh,
motion to do so.
Yeah.
Yes.
is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay,
And I will send this one out. And
okay, all right.
seeing that you're taking the minutes today, I will take care of these minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll take it from here.
You're
Yeah,
laughing.
I do want to thank Tyler for taking on the role of committee scribe going forward for the rest of the season. So we appreciate it very much.
You're all welcome.
Next item of business would be public comment. There's no public present unless, Andy, you want to be recognized. Okay.
As a representative of the public,
Yeah.
I will thank you for the wonderful job that you do.
And thank you for your recognition. Okay, next would be select board input. I think there might be one thing that I'm aware of you might want to share with the committee.
Yes, well, first off, I owe you all an apology. We did receive your email on the impact fees. I asked our interim administrator to put that on the agenda. It didn't get there. So it will get on an agenda shortly. And two, we now have a new town administrator, new old town administrator. Becky Taylor Chase
Yeah, I got
came
any,
back to us and
that was
On
the,
a full-time basis?
on a full-time basis, and we're
Yes.
very happy
I got
to
an
have her
email.
back.
I was surprised. I got an email from her this morning giving me the news and I went, what, didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So once we get a few things straightened out, we'll get on the,
Okay.
there's a mess to take care of before we
Okay.
get to the impact fees, but we'll get.
Okay. Well, you got our feedback and we'll work with you if and when there's a need to in the future. You and the select board. Thank you, Andy. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of the Public Works items on the asset schedule. And tonight we have with us Road Commissioner Matt Nielsen to present any updates or adjustments to the current asset schedule. Matt has provided us with a hard copy of all of the items in his area. And in the red column on the replacement cost are the things that Matt is going to focus on for discussion tonight. I've asked Teresa to update any agreement that the committee makes with regard to changes in replacement cost or service life or any other changes to make that make those changes right in the spreadsheet tonight. And we'll do the same thing next time when Chief Peters is here. And as soon as that presentation is done, there's a new section of the spreadsheet that I've incorporated the inflation analysis that we have seen in the past. And rather than doing that as a separate item that comes at a subsequent meeting, it's going to be right in the spreadsheet. And as soon as we're done with the last set of adjustments at the next meeting, we'll go right to that page, which should already be updated when we get there, and we can talk about that most important assumption as to what we feel we can do for the plan. And I've done that because I think we're going to be very tight in getting from a turnaround to the end of our presentations to the budget committee request for presentation from us. And so I wanted to kind of get a jump on that. So we'll see that next time. But tonight I want to give the floor to Matt to go over all of the items on the asset schedule for Public Works. So Matt, the floor is yours.
Okay, so on the hard copy I gave to you guys tonight, that is just the assets from Public Works. There is a couple different things that I didn't add on that list to begin with. So I put a number in for two different things, but the replacement cost of the Sweetser Road bridge deck and then the Poland Range Road multi-plate, those are both on this list. Where I'm not an engineer and reaching out to engineering firms to get a number on that's kind of hard to do. I'm working with one of the state engineers reps, and they agreed to meet with me and kind of look over the overview and just give me a rough idea of what they think. They do a inspection each year on the bridges, but just a one-on-one kind of overview on what we might be looking for in the next couple of years. So for now, I couldn't get a designated number on that. He's hoping to meet with me. I was hoping to do it before the first of the year, but it didn't match up. So those two I didn't have on here. I think I did throw this, the Sweetser Road Bridge, the deck on there. And that's at pretty much the same cost as last year, because that's the price of like when I did lumber wise of replacing the deck. But I'm talking for the beams and stuff that might be underneath, and the same thing with the multi-plate for, you know, the different things that we might have to fix erosion wise down the road. But I wanted to talk to an engineer, somebody that had more of a specialty on that beforehand.
When might you have something for us on?
I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks. It's just with the holidays and all that, we couldn't meet up. And I'm hoping that as long as there's not a ton of snow, we can look underneath, just to get a good look underneath the bridge and around the multi-plate culvert. But for the most part, the multi-plate's in good enough shape that I don't see us having to do anything anytime soon. So I think it's not gonna be too big of a deal for this year to stay with the same.
I mean, the multi-plate is like 30 years out in the
That's what I
future,
mean.
right? So, I mean, anything you gotta do now probably is maintenance.
Exactly, but this is more of just down the road looking to, so kind of work with the inspector, so I know better indications of what to look for, if that was to fail or something in that case. I mean, obviously I know the basics, but have an actual engineer kind of just walk through some of the things because they'd know better off on the different pieces of granite underneath and what might need to be done to like the Sweetser Road Bridge and stuff like that. So they usually do the actual inspection each year of the bridges. So I kind of wanted to just work with them on that. So the multi-plate for now, I was gonna leave at the same number. And like you said, that's 30 years down, so it shouldn't be that big. It wouldn't be that big of a influx anyways.
No, I think it's a great idea to get somebody like that
Yeah,
kind of guiding your input. But I mean, you've got to make the final judgment this far out.
yeah, and well, so like some stuff with, say, the material wise for replacing the bridge. If we had to do that on Sweetser Road, that is, I can get the materials list in a sense, but to know, especially with the way that the stuff's going nowadays, of if we put a bid out and how much it's gonna cost to have people bid on it and what it might be, it's hard to really judge that.
But it sounds like that you're also kind of not sure of the scope of the Sweetser Road Bridge,
Yeah,
because this item anticipates just replacing the decking, I think.
yeah, but this is replacing the decking, but the town actually owns the whole bridge in a sense. So I kind of want to look at this more of not just replacing the decking, but doing any preventative maintenance or anything else we might have to do to beams and stuff like that to keep it in good condition. The bridge right now was inspected last spring and it's in good condition. There's no issues with the bridge. So the price that's on there right now is to replace the deck, and that's what I have on there. But moving forward, if that price does go up, I'll inform you guys, but that might be with perhaps if the beams need to be repainted or something to that extent, that would be beyond the scope of just replacing the deck boards. So it might add some money because it would be replacing the deck boards and the cost to repaint the bridge in a sense of the beams underneath.
So would you incorporate that into the one figure?
Yeah, it would be into the one figure. What I'm saying is instead of just having it as Sweetser Road Bridge deck replacement, more of Sweetser Road Bridge replacement, not that we're gonna replace the whole bridge, but so we know that we might have to add money to replace certain different items on the bridge, not just the.
Well, I think though you want to take a hard look at when you're doing it piece by piece.
Okay,
Is that a maintenance or a capital? I mean, the deck, barely makes it into the capital.
yeah, I know.
Painting the structural beams underneath, that might be just a periodic maintenance.
Yeah,
That's going in the
True.
operating budget. Getting that input from the state engineer to say, all right, when does this bridge need a replacement? Now you're talking about changing the scope of the project, which would be capital.
mhm,
Because you have to rebuild the bridge. I mean, that's a new bridge, that's a capital item.
Yeah.
But doing the required maintenance, which, if that engineer can help you discern when and what to do, then maybe that kind of preserves the life of the existing structure.
yeah,
And then, we can put off, from a safety standpoint and from a cost standpoint, replacing that bridge.
yeah. That's kind of, I agree. I guess the way to kind of better explain it is looking at it as almost of, I wanted to meet with the engineer to get their inputs on it, but then look at it as almost like a refurb. So this price is at $10,000 for now, but it might be, if I talk with him and he says, look, you really could replace the deck in the next 5 years or whenever it's due to do, and it would be nice to repaint the beams and do some guardrail work. I know those are 3 different items, some would fall under maintenance, but the scope of the project would be, say it came out to $20,000. Would that be better off to have the deck, say, broke down as a capital item and then have the other ones fall under maintenance? Or would it be better to just have it all under, like, say, if you were redoing all of it at once?
I think we might have to look at the project items that you're talking about, because it's offhand, I'd say it's a combination of maintenance and
Yeah,
capital. Whether or not you could conjure it into a the capital budget, I think we'd have to look at.
We
Yeah.
had that problem before when we looked at trailers and looking at subframes,
Yeah.
for example, and replacing a subframe, would be over a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Then, but it would actually extend the life of the trailer.
Mhm.
And that's what you're doing here. But in my opinion, most of this, of course, I don't know exactly how much this repair work would cost, but it sounds like it would be almost the maintenance.
Yeah, this is more or less just for, like cost of materials. This, and that would be like with the public works crew doing the
Mhm.
work, so there wouldn't be any labor involved. But being able to, I guess what I'm getting at is we don't need to keep going around. I get what you're saying. I'll get a better idea with the state rep and then I can come back with that. But it's not that might be, I can either send that to you when I get that information. I just don't know if I'll have it before this whole budget season goes. That's why I was just kind of going with the.
If you have any changes from a capital standpoint, we'd like them
Okay.
before the end of this. Well, our next meeting will be the last week of this month.
Okay,
And then I assume we're gonna have a short time frame to get our recommendations into the budget committee. So if you
Yeah.
have it by then, whatever you have.
okay. So
And-
that might be the only one that I don't have in a sense.
Okay.
But I'll have to get at a later date, I believe, but we
Yep.
can go down through the list. So with is there any other questions on that for now?
Nope.
All right, so moving down through the list, I know I don't have this in order. But I have, truck 5, which is an F-250, pickup truck at this point. The years, we bought it in 2020. The cost when we purchased the truck and the plow was 62. Replacement cost I have on that is 70 now. To replace the pickup truck, and that would be outfitted with that truck does not have a sander in it right now, but it does have a plow on it, so that would be the pickup and outfitted with a plow is the 70,000.
Right now, we have it at,
62.
well, the replacement cost we have right now is 78. So did the cost go down?
I thought that was at,
Isn't it 62?
I thought that was at
The
60.
purchase cost was 62, but the replacement cost we have.
Oh, yeah, over here.
78
70.
in our spreadsheet.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the projected
Yeah.
replacement cost. He's saying this, the replacement cost today would be 70.
Okay.
So it's within the ballpark of you guys' projected prices is a couple years out from, that's if we
Right,
bought
so
that.
that makes sense with what you're saying.
Yeah, so that works.
What,
Yeah.
right, but my question would be, in the plan right now is 62, which should have been last year's current replacement cost. And you're saying that's when that was our acquisition price in 2020. So that was 4 years ago, not last year.
No, I think because I took the number off I think I had that wrong, Paul. I think I took the number from the spreadsheet and I said that was the purchase price, but I think that was last year.
Last year's not, all right, so all right, that makes, okay.
So the column, that is not highlighted is the last year's price. That should match up with the spreadsheet, I believe.
And
Okay.
the column replacement cost is today's.
Yes,
And that-
Okay.
That includes the plow, you said.
yes.
And the 62,000 of the original price did not include the plow. or-
No, that was last year's replacement cost, I believe.
Yeah, that, if it came off the spreadsheet, it would have been what you gave us last year.
Yes, and I believe,
Which then gets me to my question.
yes,
So if last year was 62,000 for that setup,
yeah.
it really went up $8,000 in 1 year. That's more than 10% inflation in 1 year.
Including the plow.
Well,
I assume that last year included the plow too.
No, I just asked,
Oh,
he said no.
yeah, last year I believe included a plow too, but
Oh, it did.
with the price of, what I got for the price for the truck to replace the same vehicle, pretty much, but I had, 3 different, vendors, but the same truck, not a diesel, the same motor, well, comparable to what they have is, just to buy the truck straight now is $60,000. So where we bought, and that's also not with when we did that stuff, that's not with any deals or anything. That's just me calling a dealership and saying,
It's street price.
yeah, that's a street price.
Okay, so what you're saying is you've talked to 3 dealers and you've concluded that $70,000 is the current replacement cost of that
Yeah.
comparable setup.
Well, so a plow now, to put the plow setup on there, because, so the newer plows are all, they're more money because they have V plows, they have different plows that come out. Well, they're, all the different brands, like we run Fishers, they're compatible to run all those different blades. So they're all more expensive. So a blade that was $8,500 last year is like it's like $9,800 to install that plow on the vehicle, on the truck now. So it's roughly $10,000 for the plow and installed, and that's, you know, you never know, it could be 12 depending on the dealer. And then it's 60 out off the lot, if we went and picked one up off the lot.
All right, but I'm just getting my brain conditioned for what
Mhm.
is happening is that if the street price from the last year to this year for the comparable setup is gone up more than 10%, then I hope my brain's not conditioned. I was hoping that inflation would be easing, not increasing.
Yeah, well, on some things, it did.
Okay, well,
And-
we'll see that as we go through, but I just,
I think at least.
that's why I'm questioning it, because if that holds throughout the plan, then
Well,
it's gonna be
and,
tough.
and the other thing is to, not to get into the economic side of it, but that is for, say today, if we went out and we bought a 2025 or a 2026, whatever the newest model is, because that's what we tend to do, where they have there's a lot of even 2023s on lots still, because the thing is pickup trucks, for one, they're a crazy amount of money and they're not selling as much. So I do see it dropping possibly at some point, but for right now, the inflation's it's still high.
Those plows from the pickup trucks that you have now, is that replaceable on the new? Could you keep the plow rather than getting a new replacement with a new latest plow?
Yeah, so some of the plows, because the plows are compatible to run between different vehicles. That's why we run the same plow. So if one breaks, you could take the plow off the other truck and put it on that if you needed to run, say, the sander. So the 2 plows that we have now for the 2 different trucks can work on either truck. And that is definitely a possibility. The only thing you run into is, if the plow is in good shape, but after, say, 10 years of service, like the last one we got rid of on the last 1-ton that we got rid of, the plow was in pretty rough shape and all the pins and bushings and everything were worn out on it. So we actually just we traded that in with the old vehicle
Is it
and bought a
safe-
new setup.
Is it safe to assume that that the life of the plow is basically the same as the life of the truck?
For budgeting purposes, I would definitely say the life of the plow is the same as the truck. If you get a plow that for some reason you say this thing is in great shape and we can move it on to the next vehicle, then we can save some money there, but I would not plan on that. I would
You know,
plan to replace
I
it.
think a few years ago, maybe even before you were in your position, the committee agreed with the road commissioner that we would do the plows and the vehicles together because we were running into a real problem when we'd get partway through a new vehicle and the plow is now shot because we tried to carry the plow forward. And then we had to go out and buy just the plow, which we would not plan for. Because it seemed to be economically a better idea to plan for new truck, get a new plow to go on it, and then
Yeah.
both have a good chance of making it through the service life.
And like I said, some of the items, whether it be a plow or a different, bucket or something on a machine, some of those items are compatible and you might get one that you can use, but I would not plan for that. For budgeting purposes, I would say, we're gonna replace the truck, we're gonna replace the plow, all at the same time.
Okay,
So yes,
so 70,000 is the
Is-
current street price for comparable unit
yes,
pickup and plow.
yes.
Okay.
On On to the next one. Any questions? So on to truck 6, which is the F-450 dump truck. This is our 1-ton that was replaced in 2024. I believe this price was the actual cost of the item because it was last year. So $75,000. That was for the whole truck, and that is 80. So that one's closer to. It wasn't as big of a jump, but that's also partial because it was last year. And with that, that's replacing the truck, the plow, and that truck is actually equipped with a sander as well. So it has a dump body, small dump body in the back, but it also has a sander that we put it in the winter time.
Oh, okay.
Any questions on that one?
Right.
All set? All right. So the next one is gonna be a full-size dump truck. That is truck 1, the Freightliner dump truck. It's a 2021. The replacement price I had as $268. And that's what I had for the 3 of these, but the next 3 should be fairly close to the same. I have these at $278 now, and cost went up $10,000, which is kind of a interesting. It's interesting because we're in the process of buying a truck right now that we got approved in the last year's budget. This was the number that I recorded. This was the number that I was told was the 268. So when I talked with one of the vendors, I basically, we were getting ready to build the truck and I gave him this number and he said, "Where'd you get that number?" And I said, "This was the number you gave me when I first said that we were gonna be building a truck." Well, something was left out, either it was a portion of the labor or something like that. So this one jumped up $10,000, but a portion of that was because of the price that they had given me last year of the 268 should have been higher. To build the truck, I was told, to put the body and plow on it, I was told like $107,000. And the real price he told me to do it again today would be like $117,000 or $18,000. So that one took a jump of $10,000. I know from last year to this year, and you're gonna say, well, we actually bought a truck this year or last year. The truck that we're buying, we're getting for the price that is reflected on here of 268. But going forward, to buy another one today would be about $10,000 more. And that wasn't to do with buying the actual truck. That was to do with installing the body and the plow. When somebody gave me the figures earlier this year, the figures were wrong.
So the truck 2 was actually a deal then?
Truck 2, yes. So truck 2, technically, it should have probably been more than it is. And working with the dealership, they were good to me because when I told him that the salesman that was the price that he had given me and I had emails of it, he said, "Okay, well, that's the price we're gonna give you." So yes, truck 2 should have been $10,000 more. So moving forward,
So shouldn't the replacement cost of truck 2 be 278 as well?
yes, you're right.
Yeah.
I got that. You got me on that. But the cost today of it is,
Today, if you
Yeah.
buy it today, it's 268.
Yes,
The current
sorry.
replacement, if you replace it, it's gonna be 278.
that is an error on my part.
Just curiosity, when's that due in? Next month?
Doing to service or?
Yeah.
So yeah, the truck has been bought. So we buy the truck from a vendor and then it gets sent to, it's at Viking Surveys who puts the body and the wing and all the sander controls and all that in it. It's at Viking now and they're putting the body and stuff on it. They were the ones that, we had a conversation last year about buying a vehicle earlier than expected because, the bodies that they have, they're still like, I ordered this when we started talking last year. I told them that I was probably gonna be ordering one, cause it's anywhere from, they say not 8, 9 to even up to 14 to 16 months out for the bodies on these, just because they come out of Canada and the plant can't produce them fast enough. But luckily, the truck we had actually came in early and then we got it to the place, so we should be getting it by the end of, this winter. So
Go into this fiscal year,
yes,
which is what was planned for.
yes. So we're getting it, we'll be getting it hopefully within the next 2 months or so. But the truck that we were having issues with last year is working. That will be replaced hopefully within a month or so. But yeah, so on that, the truck one is correct, I believe, of the cost last year to replace was 268. This year it would be 278. And then, the next one down would be truck two, which truck two, these trucks are all, roughly the same. They're Freightliner, tandem axle dump trucks with plows and wings. So I have the same price on all three of them because roughly they're the same spec truck when we order them. So they should be the same exact price. So the next one is truck two, which is the one that's getting replaced this year. It's on its way now. And that is the 268 number that we paid for the truck. I have 268 as the replacement cost, but it should be 278. Any questions with that? And on to the next one, which is truck three, which is the third of the Freightliner tandem axle dump trucks that we have. Which is a 2017. It would be the next truck due to replacement. And that went from 268 to 278 replacement cost. The same as the last two. That is due to be replaced in 2029. And so part of this, that does fall in within the, I think, 5 years or so. With this, I still did, I went through and I pulled numbers for, say, a Freightliner, a Western Star, a Mackinnon International. And those are like the, say, the 4 different truck manufacturers that we usually pull from. So I got numbers from them and they all match up fairly close to like the 165 mark, which is comparable to the, when I kind of adjusted all the different numbers, they all kind of fall within that. The average is the 165. So that was the number that I went for when I added that number to the body number. So the replacement cost of the truck, say, is $165,000. And then you have the body and the plow and all that stuff,
So for planning purposes, all the manufacturers are coming
or
in
fairly close.
fairly close.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I did have more than three different
Okay.
vendors. For the plow and wing, there's really only 2. So you got Viking and HB, so I got them from them, and they're both fairly close. HP was a little bit more, but they're about $2,000 away from the price of each other. So that was how I got the cost for the 278.
Okay.
Um,
One more question on dump trucks.
Yep.
because we had, I think it's truck two,
Mhm.
because of the issues you were having with, with the truck, in the plan, we changed the service life to 10 years so that it would fall into this fiscal year.
Yep,
Do you agree that we should put the service life for truck two back to 12 years
that is,
once we make the purchase?
once we make the purchase for the new incoming truck, I believe you're right, the other trucks were up to 12 years, so we'll move that, we'll adjust that back to the 12-year mark,
Mhm.
and just to make them all the same, unless you want to adjust them all down to the 10-year.
Do you want me to answer that?
I know we already agreed on that. Had to try.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the idea is, and new stuff breaks as well, but if you have new items, and as the guys know, if we can keep the new items in good shape, which granted, it's hard to do without some of the accommodations that we don't have, but if we can try to keep them in the best shape we can, then they'll last longer.
Well, and if everybody understands what the projected service life is, then
Yeah, they all
Yeah.
know.
we have a better chance of getting there
Yes.
than if we don't focus on it.
And you are spraying them with rust preventative every year.
Yep, all the fire trucks and all the public works trucks get done at the same time each year. Any other questions?
Nope. Go ahead.
So moving on to the next one on the list, which would be truck 4, the international dump truck. I have this on here. This is technically the spare truck. This was moved to the spare when truck 1 was bought, I believe. And so the way, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that this is in here, I have this in the spreadsheet, but I have no replacement cost for this. Because this is not projected to really be replaced. Typically, we will move, if we have a truck that we replace and that truck is in okay shape, but it's due to be replaced in a certain year, we will move that vehicle to the spare vehicle and get rid of the spare that we have now. I think that's how we've done it in the past.
So just out of curiosity, truck two is being replaced. Will that become the spare and the international go elsewhere?
No, so the international is in, the international, just so you guys know, is the small truck. It's a full-size dump truck, but it's only 1 axle compared to 2. That is the spare truck as of now, and we're actually gonna keep that as the spare truck because truck 2, we talked about this last year, replacing it kind of early. It has some issues and we'd like to get rid of it. So that truck 2 is the truck that is actually leaving
Leaving the fleet.
the
Okay.
fleet.
Got it.
Truck 4 is gonna stay, the spare. Any questions?
Truck 2 is the last truck that we have that's had plow gear and body
Yes,
transferred from an older truck. So
that's the reason why.
that's the reason.
It's a heat.
Been cobbled together.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Um, So yeah, no, we're not, we didn't ask for a new truck to take the one that we're replacing and make that the spare and say.
No, I was just curious because as you described it, that's what would normally happen.
Yeah, so hopefully, the next truck due to be replaced is the 2017, the truck 3, the last one that we did in 2029. If that truck is in good shape at the time, we're hoping to, keep that as,
Not in good shape, but good enough.
good enough shape. Better shape than the spare truck.
Right.
Around here, you take what you get.
You're right.
Um,
Because around here, if it were in good shape, we'd keep it in the fleet, right?
yeah,
Right, but it's good enough to, right, it's good enough to be spare, it can
they
move
can
over.
stay in the fleet.
Right.
So, so yeah, that truck is in here, but I don't have a replacement figure or a replacement figure for last year, but just because it's on the list, but it doesn't count,
Doesn't get funded.
doesn't get funded.
In the yard, but not on paper.
Right.
Yes. So moving on to the equipment. First one I have on the list is the wheel loader. A 2022, the replacement cost last year was 260. The replacement cost this year is 270. And I will say that was for the, the two, some of these vendors are, to be honest, some of these vendors are hard to get a hold of because it's salesmen that you call every year. and say, hey, Matt, how you doing? Are you buying something this year? Yeah, I'd like the price of this, this, and this. Yeah, are you buying any of them? Well, no, but I need the replacement of this. So out of the 10 emails that you send trying to pull teeth, you might get 3 back. So, I got 3 numbers, and they were actually all from the kind of the higher end of this. So, and the average of those 3 was 270. One of them was actually like really high, but I think the guy actually quoted me for, like it's the same size machine, but it has all the bells and whistles. Because some of these loaders, they actually have weight scales in them. So like they know, the operator knows the exact weight of that they're putting into the dump
Cargo,
trucks.
yeah.
The dump trucks won't be overweight when they go onto the road. And there's a lot of like
Wow.
computerized stuff that goes along with it. And so it's just like a car. You can buy the base model, or you can buy the one that has heated seats and it, keeps you in your lane and it does all that. It's a lot more money. I think the guy had given me, a lot of times they'll give me the spec of what they sold recently, and I think that was one of the closest one he had. So he sent that, because when I got the number, I'm like, are you sure? Because this seems really high. So that one did go up $10,000, but part of that was, I think, because of the 3 that I got back was those were the numbers that when I averaged them out, that was the number that I got.
And you get heated seats.
What's that?
And you get heated seats.
I didn't see the spec of the truck.
Coming out with self-driving dump trucks?
I don't know.
Save on manpower.
And they go in circles in parking lots.
So yes. So that one was 270 for the wheel loader. Is there any other questions on that?
Nope, go ahead.
And that also isn't due to be replaced until 2042, which you got a while, so we got time. The next one is the loader backhoe. So the replacement price I had on that was 195,000 for last year's replacement price. This year was 205 for the replacement price of the machine. So that one was up roughly $10,000 as well.
Seems to be a theme.
Yeah, well, and like I said, that's the numbers that I got from this. I don't know if that's gonna continue, but roughly. I forget, that one's due to be replaced in 2032. But I think we also had talked about, I think that one had I forget what we had for a lifespan on the backhoe. But is it 20 year? Okay, so we already.
That's the Caterpillar?
Yes,
No, it's still in the plan at 15. I think we went from a 10 to a 15 when we changed that.
yeah, that's, we went from a 10 to a 15. So we did stretch that one out a little bit. Partly because we got the wheel loader now. So the wheel loader does the majority of the loading of all the sand and salt that we do, even the gravel and other items that we do out back. So the backhoe is more used for, it's a backup in a sense for that. We can still use it for that, but it's not used as much for the same amount of work that it was.
Well, the idea when we got the wheel loader was to get the loader backhoe away from the salt.
Yes, which the loader backhoe doesn't, we try to keep that right out of the salt now. So, like replacing that, the machine doesn't get nearly as much hard use as it did before because it does have a front bucket on it, but it wasn't made to load, trucks.
Productivity is higher with the wheel
Yes,
loader.
with the wheel loader. And we already kind of went through that. So depending on how this all looks, the loader backhoe might even be able to be updated from, say, 15 to 20 years when we get to that.
Well, let's get closer to the 15 before we decide that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice.
But so there's stuff to look forward to. And then the next one would be the wheeled excavator. So the wheeled excavator, I had a price last year of $210,000. And the price I got this year, the average price was say 220 for the machine. And part of that included was last year's price. There's different things that we use on like the excavator in a sense. So we have a couple different buckets that we use. We have a bucket that we say we use for ditching and a bucket that we use for like a digging bucket with teeth on it for if you're digging through rocks or anything like that. And with that, last year talking with the guy that I had talked with, the wheeled excavator, I think the base price for the unit would be roughly, it might be, you know, like $212,000 or $15,000. But I wanted to, I did add like, say, the 5,000 to that because he said, so that would be what the price would be to have the extra hydraulics put down the bucket, which I don't think was on the 210. So the last cost I had didn't have those extra hydraulics put on the bucket, which I also wanted to make sure of too, because we're talking about possibly purchasing a flail mower to go on the end of that. Yeah, so it needs the higher flow hydraulics to that to run the like say ditching bucket or bucket that we use for ditching on the side of the road, and possibly an attachment if we did buy like a flail mower or something to that extent. So that one, trying to, I know it says it's $10,000 higher than the last, but it's more or less getting closer to the purchase date. I want to make sure that we have, it's not just a ballpark number. It's a closer figure on the machine and having the right machine with the right like hydraulic setup and all that. So that's what the base price of the machine is one, and then to add the.
So there's, in
hydraulics.
the 220, there's more in it than in the
Yeah.
price we were looking at last year.
Yes,
And it's primarily the extra hydraulics
yes.
needed to do something like the flail mower.
Yeah.
Which is the next item on the.
Yeah, I didn't, yeah, because I didn't want to price out a machine that wasn't capable of running a different item, you know what I mean?
Oh, I understood.
So that's kind of where the price comes from on that. And as I think we talked about last year and we agreed on, this is the price for wheeled machines. And with that, I had all fairly close to the number that we had, but I had I had 4 different vendors that I reached out to for the wheeled machine. And with that, the average was about 220, and all those machines, as I said before, that's with the hydraulic setup. That
For the flame, for the
for
mower.
the mower or any other attachment of a bucket or something like that, to be run on that.
So is there an extra bucket in there that we were not considering last year?
So yes, last year, the price that I had, going through it was like a base model price, and it didn't have the extra bucket, which has a hydraulic, say, wrist on it to do, that we have on the machine that we have now. That's the bucket that we use for, mainly any maintenance on the side of the
So if I
road.
look at those two numbers, you've got the same basic machine plus the extra hydraulics to run
Yeah,
attachments and an extra attachment we didn't talk about last year.
so the bucket price, yeah, I don't know exactly what this is
I'm not
more,
asking for, I'm just trying to get my
Yes.
head around what's included in that
yes.
to take it up $10,000. So it's not just inflation.
No, that's not just inflation
Okay.
on the 10,000. The 10,000 is basically making sure, so it's hard to explain, but, so on a machine, takes the motor to run the machine, then there's a certain amount of hydraulic pressure to run, different attachments for the machine. Some machines can run bigger attachments or whatever it is. This is the price with inflation to make sure that the hydraulic pressure would be enough to run for a, say, flail mower or a bigger hydraulic item that might be put on the end of this.
So
Because we were talking
upgraded
about-
hydraulics.
Yes.
In brief.
It's a high flow machine. they
Not,
call it.
yeah, I'm not questioning where you're going with this. I just want to understand why is it different? 'Cause
Yeah, no, I 100%
I'm
understand.
doing all these mental calculations on inflation because that,
You're gonna lose.
It's
Yeah, I
not, just- that one's not just inflation.
right, well, that's what we want to understand because you've got such big items, it drives the entire budget.
Yeah, no, I get that. So, yes,
I got a base machine of $2,000 more than previous year.
yes. The base
Mhm.
machine is, well,
Well,
yeah, it's, and but that's an estimated cost. I mean, because when you buy, sometimes you buy a name brand, a John Deere's typically more than a different one, so, but yes. Inflation wise, the excavator hasn't gone up as much, it's just adding, making sure that there's the right specs for the machine.
I don't hear anybody challenging what you're proposing, so do you want to move on to the next item?
I'm good with that if you
All
are.
right.
The next item is a flail mower attachment for the excavator. So for this one, it is, I got two different estimates. And this was for 40,000, which the cost last year was 30,000. So this one was $10,000 more, but this is for a different, it's a flail mower, but say you had one that was 36 inch. The manufacturer that contacted me they gave me the number for, say, like a 48-inch machine, which the tractor could probably handle, but the tractor doesn't necessarily, we actually necessarily don't need a 48-inch. I specified that I didn't want one of those because that was, for one, it's too big to cross a ditch line in a sense. I'd rather have the smaller head that would fit in there. So the number of 40 I have in there, because that's what I put that in there because that's what the number was that they gave me. I think the realistic number, I'd like to go with is like about 35 for the actual head.
And that would be for a 36-inch head?
Yes, that would be for the smaller head. This was the number that I reflected on here, because this was the number that they gave me. Looking through the specs on it, it's the same machine in a sense, the same head, but it's the bigger head. And roughly they're usually about $2,000, $3,000 at least more. And I didn't want that head. So when I called him back, he said, well, it'd probably be, save, 35 in a sense.
The 35 gives you the same piece that you priced last year.
So the flail mower, I'd actually like to move from 30 to 35, not 40. 40 was just the number that I had got
For the same piece, the same.
Yeah, for the same piece would be about 35.
So that's still higher than most.
Yep.
numbers. So,
And then, moving on to the motor grader. The motor grader that we have is, a 2012 at $365, $1,000. The updated price that I had for replacement, so it would be the same model. But I had asked the guy on this machine, our grader that we have now is set up with a mow board. And, it has rear hydraulics to run, a winch, so we have a, York rake that goes on the backside of it. And then it has a wing that we can put on in the winter time. Moving forward with, what we have, doing for like winters and stuff like that, the machine that we have set up with, say, the rear hydraulics, it's similar to the excavator, to have it plumbed, so not necessarily with the wing on it, but to have it plumbed for the secondary items that we have. Last year's price was a base price for the bare bones machine of the same machine, but having it plumbed for, say, like the York rake, in a sense, that might be an item that doesn't get used a ton. We could possibly use it on the new machine, but to have the machine to have the right hookup to hook to the York rake, is another hydraulic line and stuff like that. So the guy roughly said, add to the price for that. So the price of $375 is for the replacement price of this machine with the hydraulic setup to have, say, a plow and wing.
And we have the
Yeah.
plow and wing now,
Yeah.
and we have the rake now.
So,
So you're saying the 365 is a base model?
yeah,
Whereas the 375 is a comparable model?
yeah, so that's well, no, it's the same model of the grader. But it would be compatible. Last year, I didn't have in the price to have, say, a wing put on the grader and the York rake. I'm not saying,
That's what I was saying.
yeah,
Trying to say, yeah, and I didn't say it correctly, is base.
yeah.
I'm right, yeah, our spec to use the equipment we have.
So basically, the extra $10,000, the grader is about $365 to replace the base of the grader. But to get to replace the stuff that we have with the grader would be, it's probably gonna be another, say, 85 to 10 grand for that. So that's where I got the price of,
So the
375.
375 includes an upgrade,
yes.
but it's a necessary upgrade because of the equipment that you're using.
Yeah, and it's, to me, it's better reflected because that's the equipment that we have at this time.
I mean, that's basically the same on the excavator. It was, you had the hydraulics that were figured in, which was necessary to accommodate it for the equipment that you're gonna, the mower that you're gonna.
Yes,
But, so here it's basically a similar proposition.
yeah. Similar to what we do with the plow trucks, when we spec a new plow truck, you spec a new plow truck with the gear that you need to, a new plow and the sander and stuff.
Last year's price would not have given us a machine that would have been compatible with this machine.
Yes.
Okay. So you got inflation plus additions to be compatible.
Yes.
That's another way to put it.
So, well, and part of it is just, and obviously, I don't know everything at this time, but like making sure that, because a lot of times when I get a spec or somebody sends me the base price model, I know we're using that as a number, but I'm trying to get the closest figure that I possibly can to the replacement cost of that machine. Because if not, then it doesn't reflect properly when you move forward and say, you know, the $210,000 buys you the wheeled machine, but it doesn't buy us the wheeled machine with the high flow that we need to,
I'd rather you do what you're doing.
yeah,
To match up, you're matching the machine to our need rather
Yeah.
than getting the base price. And then you get it here and you say, well, I can't use all my attachments because we only got the base machine.
yeah,
Or the year comes to replace it, and we're like.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Give us.
right.
yeah, similar to doing the price of buying the truck and putting the plow and the wing and all that stuff, because you gotta add everything up, because we're looking at the full, you know, the full price of that, plus the $1,000 it takes to have it sent somewhere and lettered that says Town of Pownell on the side of it, because a lot of times you don't think of that either, you know, but to have it turnkey ready to be in use.
Yeah.
So trying to get close to that
And
number.
that's what we're assuming here is that price puts the machine in use
Yes,
and not sits in the yard until you find the money to get all the other things you need to.
yes.
Accept-
So,
What?
It's an acceptable increase.
Yes,
Logically.
yes.
so, yeah, and so that's, with the items of, say, the grader, the wheeled excavator, and some of those items, that's, yeah, part of that is, it's not all inflation, part of that is to set up the machine properly, from, let's say, a base.
And once we have it defined, then
Mhm.
future increases will just be inflation.
Yeah.
Sweetser Road Bridge, we've talked about that.
Yeah, so
Just
with
the
this.
material.
With the Sweetser Road Bridge, I threw in a number of 11 just as a placeholder, $11,000. But I will hopefully, before your next meeting, which is at the end of this month, I'll send you an email. I'll hopefully have more information on that, and I can get a better estimated number on a replacement cost.
Do you
for
want to
that.
present at that meeting?
I can if you want.
I'll put you on the agenda and you can either send it in if the committee
Mhm.
says we don't have any questions, well, you know, I can let you know that you don't have to show up.
That sounds great.
Is that all right with
I
everybody?
don't know, unless you want me to come back.
Oh, we always enjoy having you here. And so Sweetser Road multi-plate, we expect to hear more from you.
Yes.
I'll put you on the agenda, may or may not require your presence.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions for Matt? Concerns?
We're not buying anything as of,
And you have, yeah, there's nothing in the budget this year for Public Works.
so we're cheap this year.
You'll make up for it later. Okay,
That looks like we shouldn't get used to it.
right, yeah. Okay,
If you think I'm bad, you should wait until you see Chief Peter.
yeah,
Hope those numbers are-
His is more than mine, usually.
well,
You got
Well,
what,
more,
$2 million?
I have more items. which is
Yeah.
Probably more.
You
but-
got over $2 million here in replacement costs. I mean, that's
So that.
over time.
And that's something obviously to think about at a different moment, but that's something that we look into with, you know, justifying housing or anything like that for the machines. I mean, just Public Works alone has replacement costs, but if you added all the machines up, you have over $2 million in
Mhm.
value.
Yeah.
Sitting there, so. But yeah, any other questions?
well, thank you very much for a good presentation and for clarifying a lot of the changes that we see on the plan.
Thank you guys for
Right.
listening to me.
One last thing for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught it, but our last meeting, we talked about the long lead times.
Yes.
And the decision of the committee was how do we handle that?
Mhm.
Was that we would continue planning for when the items are needed. What you have to do to get those is going to be up to you. but we're gonna put money, we're gonna talk to you as if the equipment is coming in the year it's needed. Now, you may have to pre-order, you may have to do things to get it to land there,
Mhm.
but that's how we're gonna do the planning.
So the
So-
equipment is here the year that it's intended to be here.
Right, and the plan is gonna show this is when we're spending the money for the equipment that's needed to land here that year. If it takes you 3 years to get that here, we're leaving you up to figure out how to
Yeah.
do that.
And I think we also, kind of because we went through that a little bit last year with the truck that we're gonna take in this year. And part of that is because I believe once it's, say, approved by the town, that money is good to be used from the town. It doesn't matter when exactly the
Right.
machine, the vehicle comes in. But yeah, that's good to know, and I'll definitely try to work with you guys on that with the lead times. Hopefully with all this stuff gets better. I know a lot of things like, equipment inventories a lot easier to get. Some things are still a little harder, like with trucks and stuff like that, with bodies. Stuff that's imported from
Mhm.
different countries or whatever. But for the most part, yeah, we'll definitely work with that on,
I mean, there's still concern about staying in sync between when the town expends the capital money and what it's shown in the plan, so that we don't plan on spending money that gets spent, that we thought, we don't want to spend the same money twice,
yes. No, I agree.
or think we can do that. So we just have to stay
But
in touch.
also, sometimes the equipment might not be able to be purchased and take ownership of in the same, say, fiscal year, in a sense. So that's where it's kind of hard to work it in.
Thinking, if you need something by July of 2030, you might be thinking about
Ordering it beforehand.
October of
Yeah,
2028, you might be talking to them going, hey, can we get this in the works?
Yeah, you may have to,
exactly.
I mean, because you've got the planning process here. We decided that we could not come up with a way that would not get us all balled up in a mess.
Yeah.
You've got the town approval process, and then you got the actual movement of money from the town treasury. And somehow, we just want to make sure that we're only identifying, because we look at the money that's available for us right now to use over the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And we don't want to say, well, we got $250,000 in here that we can use for these future things, and then town comes along and says, oh, no, we're gonna spend that on a dump truck. No, we're planning to use it over here.
Yeah.
Can't, so we'll have to just be aware until we get some experience with that.
Yeah, and we all just kind of have to be on the same page and work together with that.
But there's gonna have to be some recognition in the town itself, meaning the department heads and finance, that, what you're doing has an impact on the plan, and you don't want us coming in with appropriations that are too high or worse, too low.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate your time and your thought and input. Okay, next item is open discussion. Anything to come before the committee?
Yeah, I have a question. Or maybe it's a question. First of all, I think that you have been in the last 10, 12, 15 years, you have been doing this, have been doing a terrific job with the spreadsheet and so forth. And I hope you're gonna do it for a long time.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if, on the committee, if currently, if tomorrow, you say, I'm gonna move to Portland or something like that, if we have the expertise actually to run the spreadsheet, and I just want to discuss it, but because maybe we do, because working with spreadsheets, the last time that I actively did it is 15, 16 years ago when I was working, and I don't even have a spreadsheet on my home computer. So I think it's important that we know that we have somebody who is good enough with spreadsheets and can work it even say you're sick or you're not in today or
To go
whatever.
anywhere.
Right, yeah.
No, I don't.
You hot rodded your spreadsheet, right? I mean,
What do you mean hot rodded?
There's a lot of things in here.
you turbocharged that baby.
Well, that's, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up actually, because that's been a concern of mine ever since that spreadsheet was developed 10, 12 or more years ago. Was not to make it so robust that you'd need a computer programmer to operate it. So for the most part, it's not.
For the most part, yeah.
There are a few things,
Great.
right, there are some things that are necessary in the spreadsheet, that there is some programming in the background that makes it work. Like for instance, if you make a change on the asset schedule, it flows over to the other pages. You don't have to retype. That's programming in the background that does that. The part of it are the formulas that are used. And I would argue that somebody that understands Excel and would be able to decipher what those formulas are. But I will admit, some of those formulas are fairly complicated because they're large and they do use some, what I would say are advanced functions in Excel to make it work. But I still think that, you know, somebody would have to, I mean, even if I go back and look at something now that I did 8 years ago, I may not remember how to use that function anymore, and I've got to go Google it and say, all right, what's that doing? And figure it out. But, so I think somebody could figure it out because it's all right there. I mean, you can see the formula. And if you're an Excel person, you can kind of follow where that formula is going. And then hopefully figure out how that function works. I've tried to document within the spreadsheet everything that the spreadsheet does. Now there's a new piece that I'm adding to the spreadsheet now, which is the inflation analysis, so that we can use it on the fly, like next week after we hear from Chief Peters. Just have Teresa jump to that page and hopefully it's all been recalculated to show what the inflation is, and then we can play with that. Because there's some things you know, like you want to look at what period of time are you looking at. If you go back too far, you go back to the years of low inflation. If you go back, you know, then pre-COVID, if you kind of get normal was kind of like right before pre-COVID, which is what we used was, where was it before COVID? And now where is it? And COVID has screwed everything up. But that's, I'm struggling with trying to maintain my thinking of keeping it all right there in formulas, because it's a little harder to do some of that without putting some programming in the background, but we're almost there. So that should be, and that's not documented yet. Once I know it's working and we've looked at it, then I'll document it. But so going back to what you said, yeah, if something were to cause me to not be here for some period of time or whatever, then we're gonna need somebody to try and, you know, take a run at understanding what that's doing.
Let's not say he's gonna move to Portland, like he's gonna move someplace like.
Yeah, we feel good.
Yeah.
Get the hell
Right.
out of here.
Warm and comfy.
You're gonna go to Hawaii.
Yeah, something. So I don't know what,
Don't leave us for Portland.
right, no,
Well, all right, do you have any immediate plans?
no, I don't.
Okay.
Is there someone, I don't, just bystander at this point, but is there somebody that, within like the town or in the committee that would be willing to kind of work with you, Paul, and say, you know, kind of learn some of you, because, I mean, you can have stuff documented, so at least if something came down, you could say, okay, well, I can follow this and I can figure this out, but if somebody could kind of walk, because I mean, we've all seen you kind of walk through the spreadsheet, and it's pretty interesting to see how you know how everything works, but if you could kind of just, if there was somebody that wanted to learn, in a sense.
I would think I mean, it's not an immediate problem, but it's certainly something that we have to think about. And I think committees, I think, can have up to 7 members, I believe.
Right.
And so if we add another member, you'll be the number 5, I think, once you, if you're. planning to
Aren't
become a
you-
committee.
Aren't you filling out a form in June? Yeah.
But I mean, in the future, we can,
Yeah.
when we're looking at additional members, we can certainly, I think we should certainly keep that in mind, because I'm not really planning. When we-
Right. I mean, I would be willing to help anybody, if the committee wants to continue using that spreadsheet, help anybody understand it, get familiar with it. Probably the hardest part, although it has gotten easier because I've changed some of the ways, is in August, I start contacting Becky for information from the town that's coming out of the town audit. And it isn't always ready until later when the audit's done. But that's, usually getting that information, finding places where that goes, and then it automatically filters in. And then, as anybody would, when you document something that you created, you write it not realizing the things that you understand that aren't shown on the letters in front of you. So if
Since you-
Teresa would read it and say, I have no idea what that means. And I say, well, sure, it means this, because I do it every year for the last 12, 15 years. So, it's, if you're not a trained document writer, trying to write, particularly for your own stuff, what something actually means for a third party later on to understand, can get tricky. So it would be good to have somebody interested in it to kind of go.
Well, the other,
Committee.
the other side of it too is as we all know, I mean, no one thinks the same, but Paul also has he's always got something going in it. The way that you interpret something, the way you see it, is gonna be completely different than
Sure,
me or
sure.
whoever, cause
And somebody may come up, may come up and say, there's a lot easier way to do this. And I'm sure there is, but it's just not the way I did it.
yeah.
Like a list of occupations throughout the town and find like a
Yeah.
data analytics.
And recruit them.
Excel has a template for an asset schedule,
Right.
but
It doesn't
it's
exist.
nothing.
No,
No, it doesn't. And,
that I could do.
and I've been accused of overcomplicating things in the past, but, no, it would be great. And Teresa does stare at the spreadsheet longer than anybody else does besides me. But, it would be good to have somebody kind of beginning, get a feel with it, to question it, to help be ready for the time when it needs to be passed on to somebody else.
I also think Teresa's younger.
Well, that's a thing to look out for too. I
Do
mean,
you have Excel on your
You
computer?
gotta find somebody
Might-
younger than
might
me.
be here for a long time.
Do you guys have Excel on your computer?
Hmm?
On your
Yeah.
Have-
personal computer?
Yeah,
So
don't look at
actually
me.
even further from me.
Absolutely, do not look at me.
I Photoshop.
Yeah, I do have Excel on my computer.
I use Excel a lot, but.
I use it a lot too, but just this is more complex.
I can tell you that is a very sophisticated
Yeah.
construct.
Well, and you don't realize like I didn't realize a ton until I started doing some, cause I do a lot of our stuff, I try to put into Excel. But the way you have to kind of form your brain to think doing Excel, and when you're formatting and putting stuff in, it's completely different than just writing something out.
I was one time given an estimating spreadsheet that had been created over a period of many years by a professional estimator who used it for estimating jobs in the $100 million range. And he gave it to me so I could estimate my house. All right.
You're gonna build $100 million house?
And that one experience taught me how sophisticated you can make a standard Excel spreadsheet, or somebody can.
Yeah,
Certainly.
Yeah.
The only,
Not here.
the thing that is most worrisome about that is if you were here at the beginning, and you may be the only one that was here at the beginning, when this was built, there were versions of the spreadsheet that would get passed around to the select board, to other committees. And we all of a sudden discovered that people were reading off of different versions. And we had no way to control that.
Right.
Well, now, if you use the spreadsheet, you'll notice that it always has a version number on it. And that every time it's saved, the version number gets changed. And that's controlled by the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And the spreadsheet controls the fact that you cannot use the Excel buttons to save it. So once you open that spreadsheet up, it turns off all the native Microsoft stuff so that you can't, right, there's no auto save. You can't save it just like you would save a normal file to someplace. It takes over and you have to use the buttons within the spreadsheet. And the whole reason for that, and that was something I didn't know how to do when I started to solve that problem, but I figured it out. And that's something that works in the background that is not visible. So it shuts all that off, controls the version number, saves it back to where it got it. So if like Teresa tonight got this from a thumb drive, when we save it, she's been making the changes that we went through here. When we save it, it'll save it back to that thumb drive with a different version. So when I go home and look at that thumb drive, I'll have two versions. I know date and time, so I can tell them apart. And then it sets all the Microsoft stuff back to the way it was. So my fear is that Microsoft changes something that, how that works, and now the programming doesn't work so well. I'm comfortable, I could figure that out, but if I'm not here, and then you're gonna need somebody that can go in the, understand some of the Microsoft stuff and how to program around that. And not that I'm that brilliant or anything, I just Googled it. How does this work?
Works with Tyler Technologies here in town?
I don't know, I mean, anybody that wants to, and I'm sure, like, all right, I'll tell you what, and we're still in the meeting, so this is still in the records of the meeting. But while I was updating the spreadsheet last, as you know, we were running out of space on the asset schedule, and I've always complained that space is precious because there's of what happens in the background, so. And it was gonna take, I feared it was gonna take me a long time if I had to enlarge the asset schedule. Well, I did that. And it didn't take, well, it didn't take me long to do it, but I probably got about 8 hours worth of work in proving that all those things flow through like they're supposed to.
Double checking.
Yeah, I gotta go through every page and make sure that, all right, did the things from the asset schedule go to the bonding schedule? Did they go to the appropriation schedule? All of blah, blah, blah. And then, and so I think I've got everything figured out, but just last week I was in doing something and I said, this isn't right. Well, I found a little formatting error on a page that I hadn't remembered. So it didn't really change anything in the plan. But if you had gone to that spot, and now I can't remember where it was, and you said, that's wrong. And I said, well, I fixed that. And I suspect that we'll find little things as we keep going forward, like that really aren't creating a mess. But when you get to that particular spot, it's wrong because it hasn't carried over correctly. It's just part of that quality control that hasn't been done. And just, I'll admit that I found a page in there, and it's called the future value page, that nobody would ever go to use. But when I went to it just to make sure it was working properly. And what that does is, if you think about it, we have a 20-year plan. That means if there's an item in there that meets our criteria, but only has a 5-year life, it has to show up 4 times in that plan. And it has to show up every 5 years, it has to look different because its life has changed. So that page facilitates that. But, so when I got to that page, I'm looking at it, I couldn't remember why that page was there. And because it doesn't seem to be used by anything that we use today. And what I think that page is there for is when this was originally done, the select board wanted every item to have its own capital reserve account. So it was originally built so that every item on the asset schedule had its own account dedicated to that item. And so I needed to know how many times does that item live through the plan? And it was kind of background calculations. And if you know Excel, background calculations you can do if you're programming in the background, you have places to store variables until you want to use them again. Well, in spreadsheets, you don't have a place except on the spreadsheet to store it until you need it again. So that's what that page was doing. So I'm thinking that maybe that page can go away, but I'm afraid to take it away until we get a little bit further through the year and see what is it doing? Yeah, what's it gonna do? You know, if I have time, I can go create a dummy copy, destroy that page and see what happens. Does the plan stay the same? We'll do that sometime when I have more time. But, so it's one of those things created in 2012.
That would have
And
been the select board at that time, and that's what they wanted.
that's what they wanted. And when it was first presented to the select board, it showed the accumulation of monies that was going to be needed to have each item stand as an independent item with its own account. Millions of dollars of town money would have been tucked away in all these little accounts.
Well, yeah.
And the select board agreed that, no, we don't want to do that.
It's not realistic.
Yeah, so now it's one account. It's kind of we fund everything just in time. Because everything's in that one big pot, so. So back to your question, yes, it's something the committee needs to be thinking about, and both the current members and the recruitment of future members is somebody will need to, when I can no longer see the boxes on the screen, somebody will need to do that.
In the meantime.
I got my own stat.
In the meantime, we'll hope that you will do, doing this next.
All right, I already have a problem. Yeah, my TV in my family room either has to get bigger or I gotta move my chair closer, one or the, even with my glasses. So, all right, any other items under open discussion? Next meeting, Chief Peters and Matt will be on the agenda. Matt will present only if there's a reason for us to ask him.
And the next meeting is
Is
scheduled for.
January 29th at 6:30 here. If there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt, for a good presentation.